Well, welcome. I'm Brian Beck with Master B2B here with Andy Hoar. We have Derek Corrick here, the data maverick, I understand, from Pivotree. Welcome to the studio. Great for you to be here.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Tell us about yourself and your role at Pivotree and what Pivotree is.
So actually, I didn't start my career in data. I actually started in supply chain.
Oh, okay.
And the thing that I found is that every problem we ran into in supply chain, for me, seemed to have its root in data. Mm-hmm. And so that's what got me interested. And so I started out kind of in master data, and then master data systems in particular. Yeah. Uh-huh. And then realized that oftentimes when you're dealing in technology, sometimes you're not always solving the problem you're after. Sometimes you're highlighting it or you're exacerbating it. But at Pivotree, we really focus on supply chain and commerce, and so what I do in that frame is figure out how to help customers leverage data to drive better customer experiences.
Wonderful. And we've heard so much at the conference here in Chicago around data, right? You hear it all over the place, data. And then, of course, to your point, technology to address, the data problem. What really is the data problem? What's behind all of this?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the root cause of a lot of the data problems we're experiencing is technical debt. And the technical debt grew up really over years in the way we built out systems. So we started, early days with, needing to just make supply chains more efficient. So we had, ERP systems, and we had to have warehousing systems, and we had POS systems, and we had CRM systems, and all of those systems were building on top of each other to create, really the technology landscape, right, where in each and every case we're going and finding the data, curating the data, making it available to that technology to drive that business operation. So the data is becoming siloed, it's becoming fragmented, and it's getting lots of volume of it. Right. And a lot of it is the same data, just expressed in a different way. Yeah. And so being able to figure out what that data is, get into a place where you can make sense of it, and then basically building that data. You've heard data fabric, you've heard data mesh, but really turning the data into your platform as opposed to thinking about your platform as a technology.
Well, it sounds like data was a Humpty Dumpty that fell and broke. How do you put it back together? Like, what's the first thing you do? Everybody talks about their messy data, but it sounds like what you just said is there's POS data, there's ERP data, there's maybe even PIM data, and it's all different data. It's the same thing in many ways, but they call it something different because it came from the POS versus the ERP. Yep. How do you reconcile all that now?
Yeah, so I think about it more like the hand grenade that exploded.
Wow, that's worse than Humpty Dumpty.
That's right. Well, because Humpty Dumpty is kind of a clean mess, right? You can go and wipe it up, or you figure that out. But no, in the explosion aspect of it, it's gone everywhere. You don't know where it is. Right. So I think the first thing to do is understand that not just your business applications, but really get down to how pulling the data together itself. And so when I think about customer data, well, what are the aspects of a customer? Who owns a customer? So governance becomes a component of it. Yes. So driving governance to figure out what the data is, who owns it, and then what's essential about that data. It could have different. There could be different data requirements for different parts of the business, but a lot of that data is going to be universal. So the idea is figure out what those foundations are, put governance around it, and then you got to go find it. And one of the problems that we find often is that people don't even know where to find it. They've got systems all over the place, and so and if you ask people to go find your data and bring it to you, they often can't. And so we really work to go discover the data, work with data lineage so that we know all the places where that data is. Yeah. Bring it forward, profile it, and map it to kind of ground it in some sort of a referential taxonomy and architecture that allows people to make sense of it.
I got to ask this question though. So I'm sure you have fights over which is the source of truth. Mm-hmm. How do you resolve that? Who wins?
Well, the thing when you're having fights over the source of truth, generally you're saying which system owns it. So I think the first thing to do is get out of which system owns it and get into what's the business application for it. And then when you find that the same data has business applications, kind of across the organization,
right.
then you realize it's an enterprise asset. And so as an enterprise asset, the company owns it or the organization owns it. And so oftentimes getting people who are dedicated to the governance, maintenance, curation, and cleanliness of that data can be the way to go. So I think that's really it. A lot of people need to use it, but who owns it?
Well, actually, that's a really good point, right? Is the ownership. And I don't know what you're seeing, or it varies by organization. But when you think about a typical organizational structure, is it the marketing team? Is it the product team? Is it the e-commerce team? Who are you guys seeing? Organization that kind of owns it, right?
Well, this is where I think you see the growth of chief data officers and things like that.
Interesting.
So you think about in a company, who owns money? Well, we all right. We all need money to run.
CFO would say, "I own it,"
and that person would be correct, right? Because
right.
At the end of the day, it's a company asset that's owned and governed by the finance group, and other people need to use it. They can sign off on things. They have their own purposes for it. But at the end of the day, it's a corporate function.
Right.
And so in large organizations with data all over the place where lots of people need to use it, if you treat that data the same way you would your financial data as a corporate asset, then you're going to put corporate governance around it, which means that you need somebody at that level that can own it, because it's the only person that would have span of control to really make sure that it's being governed correctly.
Quick question on that one, though. So are chief data officers people who have all the responsibility but no the authority?
Well, that has historically been the case. I think that's becoming less the case. Because at the end of the day, people still are not seeing the data as an asset, as tangible as money. But one of the things we were just talking with Amir Berkey with Granger, who obviously they have a lot of great governance capabilities and things like that in their digital programs. He was saying he heard a long time ago that when you're a distributor, the thing you do is you move boxes, and where that box is, how much it weighs, where it's going to go, how you're going to move it. And he said, imagine a world where, in the supply chain, you didn't know where that box was, and you didn't know how it was going to get somewhere. Well, if you think about data in the same way as a digital supply chain, as a data supply chain, if you were to say, I really don't know where it came from, I really don't know what it does, I really don't know where it's going, I don't know what it feeds. You'd be pretty remiss in your duties. Somebody has to be in charge of it. So you could have a chief logistics officer in a company who understands exactly where things are going in distribution. You have a chief financial officer who understands exactly what's going on with the money. Why wouldn't you have a chief digital officer that had some teeth and understood exactly where things were going with the data?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, Mr. Data Maverick, we are up on time. So from Pivotree, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you, and enjoy the rest of the conference
Great
sessions.
Nice talking with you.
Likewise.